Islands is a small nation in the middle of the Pacific, a tropical paradise filled with coconuts, bananas, papayas, breadfruit, and pandanus trees, a lagoon teeming with fish, and small family gardens scattered here and there around the islands. While I was there, I helped the World Health Organization conduct a childhood nutrition survey that revealed that 30% of our children were stunted and underweight. In other words, chronically malnourished. This was not a huge surprise to those of us that have been there for a while, but it lent weight to the work we did, and several programs were to combat that plight. I ran kitchen garden programs with the horticultural students at the college at which I taught. I wrote a white paper for the Nittigella, the local legislature. I've been dealing with legislatures for a long time, on the need to foster breastfeeding. This led to National Breastfeeding Week with educational programs and celebrations across the island. I filmed with the Peace Corps volunteers on the island an educational video about breastfeeding and child spacing. But my favorite project was the childhood nutrition education in the elementary schools around the nation. I would go into the elementary school classrooms and I would hold up two things. In one hand, a papaya, fresh, whole, local food, not shipped in on barges, growing in the sunshine and ocean breezes. In the other hand, I would hold up a shiny package of cheese puffs, definitely not healthy, and having been shipped in from the mainland United States on a huge container ship. I would say to the children, which is healthier for you? Which is better food? Invariably, they would choose the cheese puffs, but not for the reasons that you think. They thought that anything that came in a shiny package from the store and had come over the ocean from the United States must be better for you, must be nutritious and healthy. Shiny packages can never steer you wrong, right? This always led to a lively discussion about the whole food versus processed foods, local food versus imported food, fruit versus cheesy puffs. By the end of the hour, when I opened both packages, cutting open the papaya and opening the bag of puffs, the children would usually make the right choice and go for the papaya first. Well, what is my point? I would like the committee to vote for local food versus manufactured, overly processed food, whole food versus junk food. I would like the committee to vote the way the school children in the Marshalls finally did. Support our local healthy food producers and farmers with their votes for these bills that support the work they do to feed us all. Thank you for your time. I beat you by 9 seconds.
Any questions for Betsy? Thank you, and thank you for bringing a
And I
talk.
brought trees, right? I brought it.
Thank you. Richard King.
And if you're here for the first time, please sign in when you come up for your testimony.
I didn't bring any props today, but I did bring my wife, who's going to entertain us after.
We look forward to that.
Senator Hickman, Representative Hickman, and distinguished members of the committee, I'm Richard King of Liberty, and I speak in favor of LD 925. 13 towns currently have a food sovereignty ordinance in place, and it is clear that it is the desire of many people to return to the traditional foodways where the purchase of food by a consumer from the producer is a face-to-face transaction. LD 925 defines the parameters under which unregulated face-to-face transactions occur, and it takes food sovereignty statewide. However, there are 3 points that I bring to your attention for addressing in the work session. First is the definition of farm food product. I feel strongly that the phrase milk and should be inserted before the term dairy products. Raw milk is an essential farm product, and its sale under these terms poses no economic threat to large dairy farms. The fearmongers would have us believe that raw milk is the source of foodborne illnesses and is a risk to drink. But as we learned a few weeks ago, the incidence of illnesses attributed to raw milk sales in New Hampshire was 0. The incidence of illnesses from pasteurized products, I don't have time to go into it. My second concern is the connection between the agricultural producer and the home kitchen producer. By definition, the informed end consumer with regard to a farm food product or homemade food is a person who, quote, does not resell the farm food product or homemade food, or process and sell food prepared from the farm food product or homemade food. By this definition, both producers can sell only to the end consumer. This seems to make sense, except that it precludes a home kitchen producer from buying ingredients for homemade food from the agricultural producer. This somewhat defeats the goal of keeping food production local by forcing the home kitchen producer to go to the supermarket to buy the ingredients for a home kitchen product. Lastly, I think that the requirements for labeling are overkill. I agree with listing producer identification. I agree with listing ingredients, but without particular reference to weight or volume. The ingredients themselves will provide the list of possible allergens. Labeling is particularly important when the sales are made at farmers markets or community-based sales where the purchaser may not personally know the producer. The statement, "This food is exempt from licensing and inspection by the state of Maine," is imperative for this situation because it is what makes a consumer an informed end consumer. Maria and I are working on a local food ordinance for our town. There's considerable support for the idea, but there are those who ask, why focus on this? We've been doing it all along. One person told me that after the Dan Brown case, his farmer refused to sell him milk. He was vehemently opposed to this ordinance. He didn't say whether he found a new source, but implied that he had. Denying local food transactions occur is like denying that abortion existed before it didn't exist before it was legalized. It's a much better situation.
I think Maria could finish that up for you.
She will. Thank you.
Let's see if there are any questions for Richard. Thank you for your testimony. We look forward to be entertained next. Maria?
Now I put her on the spot. She's mad at me.
Senator Ashton, Representative Hickman, honorable members of the committee. I am Maria King from Liberty and I am in favor of the bill NV 925. I am very sorry to testify in the context of the officially approved abuse of soil, plants, as well as animal and human bodies. An informed consumer knows that a licensed and state-inspected farm might grow its plants from GMO seeds with use of synthetic fertilizer, sewage, sludge, and pesticides. It might raise animals on feed from depleted soils, on bakery waste, GMO feed, Roundup treated silage, Roundup ready alfalfa, beer and ethanol sludge, chicken manure supplemented with hazardous drugs, which altogether eliminates nutritional value of meat and milk and causes harm to the health of animals and consumers. A licensed entity might also pasteurize, sterilize, homogenize, irradiate, bleach, which all deprives foods of beneficial bacteria and enzymes essential to life. Even using organic whole grains, corn and soybean, but with animals confined, a licensed farm might still not fulfill the ruminants' basic needs and destroy their intestinal environment. The majority of milk, meat, and eggs on the market come from feedlots where animals live overcrowded, sick on antibiotics and GMO growth hormones, raised in toxic conditions in its own excrements and fumes. All of that is not verifiable to consumers who find their products packaged, sealed, and labeled on shelves only. Labels often lie and mislead with descriptions or do not display the whole truth about adulteration done to a product. I believe, however, that the damage done to us and our animals through adulterated food and feed that practically starve us instead of nourishing can be reversed if we and our animals get a chance to eat properly again. Therefore, an informed consumer needs producers whose practices are verifiable and who, excluded from state regulations and inspections, do not change a natural product of the earth to a depleted one, who grow food with use of ecological practices and raise animals on intact pastures in clean stalls filled with dry, fresh bedding, not on concrete, who slaughter skillful on their premises and process food in their own homes, who enhance the nourishing properties of the products of the earth with use of traditional techniques like lactofermentation, which naturally inhibits the growth of bad bacteria. All this with hygiene practices inspected by and satisfactory to the consumer. Food provided by a farmer who raised the animals and grew plants for food without governmental inspection and interference comes fresh from garden, fresh slaughtered and ready for immediate...
Excuse me, Maria.
Sorry.
Last time, did we determine you came from Poland, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you how much I enjoy hearing your accent, because it was just in my childhood, my favorite doctor was Polish. He came over from Poland. I think I told you that.
Yeah, but you may repeat. I enjoy that.
Oh. But you don't know how it brings back memories for me, because his accent, you don't hear a Polish accent like that very often, and it really brings back memories. It's almost identical to what my doctor had for an accent. So I do appreciate you coming and hearing you once more. Committee members, do you have any questions for Maria? If you want to hear any more of her accent, you have to ask her a question. Representative Hickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Maria, for your testimony. Because I pay attention, I don't read. I don't know where you left off. How many more paragraphs do you have to read?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3 only. Which one of those three is the most important for you to read?
I will read the shortest one. Okay?
I appreciate it.
About labeling.
Yeah, well, his question is can you read that paragraph for me?
That's my question, yeah.
There is a correlation between a licensed home food manufacturer, cottage food producer, because there are different names, online at least, and an unlicensed farm food and home food kitchen producer. The regulation on home food manufacturing in Chapter 345 says, when sold directly to a consumer from the home, the product does not require a label. I have to continue. My understanding is that this labeling exemption applies by analogy to the unlicensed farm food and home kitchen producers as well, as the consumer is informed by the respective producer about the nuances of natural food production and processing, also through ensuring a consumer inspection label constituting the final form of a product is needless and also useless for the informed consumer, who usually is conscious about negative environmental impact of packaging waste and packaging production. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hickman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the regulation on home food manufacturing, Chapter 345, is that from a rule? That's from our own rules?
I put the link to rules. It is below food laws and regulations or something like that on the ACF page.
Okay.
And you can find, there are many regulations that you don't know from Maine revised statutes. These are those hidden regulations, but I found it.
Well, thank you. Keep looking.
Yeah.
And thank you again. And House Chair, I used to ask my father, now, what did Dr. Pines, what was he telling me I had to do? I would always have to ask him afterwards. I wasn't sure I was getting it clearly.
Jim Schatz.
Thank you.
The Honorable.
It's good to see some familiar faces here. Honorable Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, sorry. I'm here and honorable members of this committee. I'm here really for another bill, but I saw that we were gathering resolving, and I want to have two first. I made this trip, so I'm not going to get up for each bill, but what I wanted to do is just add my support to this bill. As a selectman for over 21 years in Blue Hill, and having spent 6 years here in this wonderful place, it was even more wonderful then, wasn't that probably true? But I would like to point out that, as you know, as an elected official, you hear about everything that's going on in your town. And in these 21 years, the farming community has grown and has become a significant part of our economy, as well as adding other features that have made our lifestyle a wonderful thing. I won't go into any details, but I think you all share this from your view where you live. But one of the things that I've noticed is the lack of we talked about foodborne illnesses and all these things. Nothing ever happens when people buy their food from our local farms, anything adverse. And when you do hear about people getting ill, it's usually from things they purchase at a supermarket. And you do hear about those things where you're just chatting around the town hall, or whether you're at a meeting, people sometimes enjoy complaining. I think you're all aware of that way of spreading the news. So I guess I would support anything that recognizes the responsibility and the accountability of these small business operators, and this is how I feature them in our towns, is they're so important, and to give them the independence and integrity of other small businesses is very important. I think this bill helps to send that message, and I'll look forward to adding more to my message when I talk to discuss 1376. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Seeing none, we'll look forward to you coming back, Representative, and thanks for making the trip to Augusta.
Thank you.
Heather Redwood.
Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. I'm feeling very deficient. I have no accent, no props, no cartoon. But I have some words. Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, and distinguished members of the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. I am Heather Redberg. I am a small diversified farmer and a small food producer. I've also been at the forefront of the movement begun in Maine and spreading across the country to preserve traditional foodways. I believe it's vitally important for the survival and I hope the growth of local food production that the rules governing that food be made locally. I live in Penobscot, one of the now 13 towns which have undertaken the work of local governance of food. The concept of legally protecting traditional foodways at the local level continues to resonate. The efforts have spread horizontally from one Maine town to another Maine town for the last 4 years. Today, Representative Chapman has brought before this committee the third attempt since 2011 to help the content of the local food ordinance spread vertically from the local level up to the state level, which is how many of us believe that democracy is supposed to function, from the people to a representative government. I want to thank my former representative, Representative Chapman, for working so hard to ensure that that representation exists in reality. I also want to share with you some stories that happened at our farm and from our farm store that show the positive effects of this local food ordinance in our town. In the summer of 2011, some 3 or 4 months after the local food ordinance passed unanimously to applause in my town, a young man came to our farm store. He told me he'd had a newspaper clipping of the ordinance having passed in Penobscot on his refrigerator door. He'd been teaching English as a second language in South Korea. He and his young family had decided to move. They'd read the news of the local food ordinance passing in Penobscot, and he told me that day in the farm store that he figured ours was a town where he and his family could settle and put down roots, a place that valued farms and food traditions. I was a little thunderstruck. From South Korea to Penobscot, Maine, and that our small efforts in western Hancock County had been part of the reason his family moved to Maine. I had little to say, believe it or not. I can't remember what happened next. I think I probably hugged him. Since then, Andy and his family have put down roots in our town. Now they have several greenhouses and a pottery kiln. They've started their own organic seedling business, and eventually when the kiln is up and running, Andy will make pots for the seedlings that they grow. The local food ordinance has been a tool of innovative policy making, experimentation, if you will, at the local level, that has created space for creativity and local economic growth. Strong local economies lead to resilience. The ordinance may keep spreading horizontally for some time to come. I'm sure it will. Please support LD 925 and help this innovative policy spread vertically.
Thank you, Heather. So those folks that bring cartoons or props, a good cartoon is worth 1,000 words. They cheat the clock that way.
I was hoping I might get some of their 9 extra seconds, actually.
You didn't mean it.
Any questions for Heather? Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, John Gandy.
Senator Richcom, Representative Hickman, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is John Gandy. I represent, I'm actually master of Halcyon Grange in Blue Hill. As you probably know, the Grange organization was started back in 1874 by farmers, for farmers primarily, to address farming issues, to band together to overcome some of their problems and difficulties and find solutions to their problems. Today, we at Halcyon Grange are very happy and proud to be getting back to us being associated with farm-related issues. We were unanimous in our support of Blue Hill's local food ordinance, which passed in our town unanimously, and very supportive of all 4 bills being considered today. We are, to a large part, our membership are farmers, but some of us aren't, including myself. I'm more what you would call a consumer. And these bills are not just about farmers. That's important too, but they're important to me because I want to have the choice of what I purchase, what I put in my body, and based on my knowledge of the way my farmer friends and neighbors handle their food and produce their products. A little anecdotal evidence or testimony, my grandchildren, 3 grandchildren, grew up on raw milk and won't drink anything else. They ran out of milk. Their mom ran out of milk one day, and she went to the store and she bought something. They wouldn't have anything to do with it. Big strapping 2 guys. One's in Maine Maritime now, and another one in high school football players and all that. But we very much support all these bills, and I hope you'll give favorable consideration. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, John. Questions?
Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Please step forward, Mr. Logan.
Alan Lober, Hope, Maine. Last week when I was here, I forgot to say hello to all of you, so I want to make sure I say hello to all of you. Last week I just acknowledged those who I'd known from before. I also forgot to say that I wanted to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for giving me something worthwhile to come here last week to say, and that goes for today. I support all 4 of these food bills. A couple of years ago, Representative Hickman introduced a bill similar to Representative Chapman's today, and at that time, I said that was the best bill that I've ever seen introduced in my lifetime, and I want to say that again today. I've been writing on food sovereignty since 2008. Those of you who know me know I usually write from a historical perspective and constitutional perspective. We probably wouldn't be here today if we were, hadn't lost our way historically and constitutionally. So I support all of these bills today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Oh, any questions?
Questions for Alan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify directly? Come forward.
Senator Edgman, Representative Hickman, and distinguished members of the committee. Just real quick, I wanted to represent Southern Maine. Apparently I'm the only one. Mike Russell, Steep Falls. In the last 10 years, I have had to return spinach, lettuce, cantaloupe, or muskmelons, milk, hamburger, chicken, and now most recently ice cream. I have a 14-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 8-year-old. I don't know if you know, but due to some of these food recalls, shopping with them is a nightmare. It got to a point where our family, about 10 years ago, decided that it was time to start homesteading. We got to the point where, you see these food recalls happening, and even the kids were asking, the wife was asking, well, who can we trust? What can we trust? So we started growing as much of our own food as we can. We're in a small space, Southern Maine. We don't have some of the tracts that you guys have, but we do what we can. The bottom line is I absolutely support this bill. I also would just like to say that I am in favor of food regulation. I think that there are folks that don't have time to research their food and know where it comes from, but there are many of us that do. And trust, somebody spoke on trust earlier. Trust is based on knowledge. I know my local farmer. I don't know the members of USDA. I don't know the members of some of the other ag agencies. I trust my local farmer, which is not to say I don't trust the ag agencies, but I meet them, I know them, I shake their hands, I see how they operate, I see how their animals live, and it makes me feel good. It's hard to explain to my kids that there are some things we cannot purchase and there are some things that we cannot buy because there are regulations that prohibit that. So I do ask that you guys would support this favorably and give some of us our right to choose our food.
Thank you. Any questions for Mike? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on LG 925? Seeing none.
Okay. How about, there's no one else, okay? And at that point, this is going to close the hearing on 925. We will reopen the testimony on 1284.
Next on the list for LB 1284 to testify, Jessica Nixon, and the Department of Agriculture and Forestry.
Jessica, you may begin.
Thank you. Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, honorable members of the Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Committee, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Nixon. I'm here today as the Director of Marketing Development, representing the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, Division of Agricultural Resource Development. We are testifying in opposition to this legislation. Under current law, we can already do the things proposed in this bill, and therefore the bill is unnecessary. I will now offer some background that we hope the committee will find helpful. The Agricultural Marketing Loan Fund is intended to advance agriculture through financing projects out of a revolving loan fund. The principal objectives outlined in the rules for the operation of AMLF include that sound business plans should be financed, funds should be provided at reasonable rates and terms, active private sector participation should be encouraged, funds should be spread amongst other industries, and to the extent possible, procedures should be kept simple and easy to understand. In summary, eligible uses of the loan proceeds are broken into two areas. The first area is that proceeds can be used in the development of commodity and storage buildings, packing and marketing facilities, or the purchase of land and buildings in connection with agricultural enterprise. While specific infrastructure operations were not detailed in this legislation, the vast areas of development considered eligible under the current AMLF rules would easily translate into many items being considered eligible under this program after completing the standard application review. The second eligible use of proceeds of the AMOF loan is for the payment or reimbursement of costs associated with the development of a business plan when related to the AMOF loan application. The project is eligible for, the following conditions need to be met. Project needs to be eligible for the loan. Application does not include a business plan, or the business plan is deemed inadequate by the commissioner, or that the commissioner determines that the project as described in the application has merit. Under the grant section of the AMOF rules, the commissioner has approval to transfer monies from the interest earned on cash balance and interest portion of the loan payment to the Agricultural Development Fund, and to use the funding for eligible purposes under the fund. Eligible monies may be used to make direct grants to individuals, firms, and corporations or other organizations for the purposes of allowing the applicant to obtain technical assistance. So in short, the commissioner can grant can receive requests for technical service grants to conduct market feasibility tests and create business plans. I won't go through the following here, as you do have it in front of you. The development of local infrastructure to the state of Maine is an important goal, as is access to the resources that will assist in the evaluation of the industry.
Good, thank you, Ms. Nixon. Now, are you going to be testifying before on any other bill?
Yes.
Okay, maybe if you want, you can still hit on this for us when you have a couple minutes
Of course.
or some time left. And my question is, how long has marketing development been in the Department of ACF?
As long as it's part of Agricultural Resource Development, that's our division.
It's been there for some time. And how long have you worked there?
I've been with the division for just over a year and a half.
Is this your first time here? I just don't recall seeing you here before.
I've come to be here in the room, but this is my first testimony, yes.
Oh, well, you did a good job. Thank you. I don't think we have any questions from the committee. Okay, we'll look forward to you to come up on another bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stewart Lexi. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly.
And the advantage to having folks, the written testimony is that if you don't finish it and you make a note, we can make a note of it and finish reading it ourselves. Thank you for that.
Senator Edgecombe, Representative Hickman, distinguished members of the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry. My name is Stuart Leckie. I'm the General Manager of the Food Service at Pearson's Cafe at St. Joseph's College in Standish, Maine. I'm here today to urge you to support LD 124 and act to expand local foods economy. St. Joseph's College is a leader in sustainability, food production, and locally grown distribution services in the greater Sebago Lakes region area. We have an infrastructure in place ready for expansion to provide more food into the local community, more educational opportunities, more jobs, and quite frankly, more opportunities for multiple communities to be local throughout the year. Already, St. Joseph's College offers open access to the community. We host local schools through field trips, farm demonstrations, and food preparation demonstrations in local schools. We grow and donate our food to local food banks, including Catherine's Cupboard. St. Joseph's College has a robust, expansive business plan that incorporates a new barn equipped with processing and packaging plant. LD 124 asks that a business plan must seek to provide benefits such as increasing production capacity, creating jobs, and providing new food processing capabilities that meet significant local demand. That is precisely our focus. We intend to create an infrastructure that not only meets the needs of St. Joseph's College and the students, but an infrastructure that meets the needs of the entire state. In expanding our farm, we can ensure additionally healthy, locally grown food to sustainable schools and communities throughout the year. Yes, the buzz is eat local. What's unique in eat local? What is unique in our intent to provide the food, but affordable prices too. Through local processing, flash freezing, and an innovative delivery process, we plan to feed Mainers food that will sustain their health without robbing their wallets. We live here. We want the best for our local communities and for every Mainer. By growing enough food locally, we won't be dependent on our state or other country distributors. Shouldn't we concentrate on keeping as many levels of food production as possible here in Maine? We have the power to do that. St. Joseph's College is committed to building a new infrastructure, increasing our refrigeration and freezing capabilities, and putting more Mainers to work. LD 124 would allow Mainers the opportunity to turn back the hands of time It would allow them to eat foods that are grown in the soil they trust, to fill it out supporting local farmers and contributing to the Maine economy. St. Joseph's College focuses on feeding Maine well as a blueprint for success. Our plan is to expand what we're doing to better educate our young Mainers about eating well, knowing where the food comes from, and insisting high standard when it comes to local foods. It's a plan not just for the future, but for right now. It's incumbent upon each of us to consider the importance of this bill and the gravity of opposing it. I appreciate giving us time and especially urge you to vote of LD 1284, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I would just like to add to I am in favor of the other 3 bills that are here today as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. What's the enrollment at St. Joe's?
The current enrollment is about 750 on campus and about 200 commuters.
Representative Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lunch, for being here. Having been born, brought up in Standish, where on earth did you find farmland that isn't growing houses?
Where
did you find farmland in the town of Standish that is not growing houses?
Well, we were lucky enough about 10 years ago to purchase a piece of land opposite St. Joseph's College. Was about I think it was about a 48-acre lot. What was it? Alpaca farm.
Yes.
And we've now taken that old farm and cultivated.
Well, thank goodness for that. He saved it.
We did.
House Chair?
So the farm across the street that you bought, I used to know the owner, and I was wondering if that was where you were growing your food, because I knew years ago, a decade. How long ago did you buy it?
He's my farmer.
2000, 2001?
Yeah, I think it sat there for a little while, and actually, to real short, but it's kind of an interesting story. We was a food service management company back then. Now we actually work for St. Joe's College, but we wanted to plant some tomatoes over there. It took me 2 years to get the registration to allow me to plant tomato, because they bought it for future development back then. And finally, as a senior, and we got permission to plant tomato seed. We had the best crop of tomatoes ever because of all this fertile soil from the 100 farmers. And then 2 years later, we put a business plan together, and finally the college took the